All right, grown-ups, it's just our time. I love the babies, but to help you, I gotta speak my mind. This segment's here to help you grow with book reviews, lessons, and things you'll be glad to know. If your little one's restless or looking to play, send them to my other playlist. The read-alouds there will brighten their day. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Teacher Lady Show. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Teacher Lady Speaks. I'm Miss Erica, the Teacher Lady, your fairy godparent when it comes to sharing joyful stories and growing young minds. Here on this segment, I use my experience teaching tiny humans to help enhance your experience while raising them. This is done by way of resources, reflection, and honest insight from a well-seasoned educator. Hey, that's me, that understands just how hard love work can be, okay? Now, this week, our theme is Unity Week, and we're diving into what it means to truly stick together and work together to improve our society as a whole. So we kick things off with two really special read-alouds, How the Leopard Got His Claws, as well as We Are Better Together. Both of those books are available for the Teacher Lady Reads, which is the read-alouds, as well as the behind the book reviews. And now we're wrapping it all up with this episode of the Teacher Lady Speaks, crash course in how to raise children who can celebrate differences, solve problems, and understand that unity doesn't necessarily mean that we're the same, but it does mean that we care enough to stay and be connected. All right? You ready? Let's grow. How would I explain unity to a young child? Whenever you're trying to explain something to children, you want to think of examples that that child will understand. So if they're a part of a soccer team, okay, and you're all trying to win the championship of the soccer team, you would say, what do all team members need to do in order for you to maybe win the tournament? And your child might say, well, we all have to show up to practice in uniform, and we all have to run, and we all have to kick the ball around. And you would say, well, what happens if half the team decided they don't want to practice? They don't want to kick the ball around anymore. They don't feel like it. And your child, depending on their age, might be able to articulate that we might not win the game. And then you would explain that that's unity. Unity is the ability to come together for the greater good. So we want to win the soccer game. So we need everybody to practice, and we need everybody to try our best. That is unity. When you work together, that's unity. When you help each other, that's unity. When you decide as a group of people that things need to change, so you go on a protest or a strike, those are all examples of unity. So you're going to find an example of something your child is in or part of or understands that requires unity for it to be successful, whether it's the soccer example I gave, they're in a dance class, or even their classroom trying to earn a pizza party. And then from there, they'll be able to understand the concept of working together, even if it's not embedded in friendship. Because sometimes you need to be unified and you don't even rock with the person you're unifying with, right? So it's not even necessarily that, oh, we're friends, we're going to work together, but we both understand that in order to win the soccer game, in order to have a better environment, so on and so forth, we need to work together. And that is unity. What are schools mandated to teach? Now, as always, every single week, I compare the state of Texas to the state of California in order to get a better idea of what your child might learn about that week's topic in class. In the state of California, under the Health and Education Social Emotional Learning Framework, in second and third grade, your child is going to learn conflict resolution, cooperation, and respecting others and their differences. This is under that health standard 4.2G. In addition, underneath the history social science standards, they'll start to learn things like civic participation or civic duty, fairness in working together for the common good, and what it means to be part of community, okay? And they'll learn that in first and second grade. So I would say from first up to third grade, they'll definitely get some exposure when it comes to unifying. It's not explicitly stated the word unity, but it's definitely implied in the sense that like we're trying to bring home this message of what it means to work together, to work in a group, to cooperate with others, to be respectful when you disagree, so on and so forth. And so I would say that the framework is less of like sit down, we're going to learn this, and more so how do we apply this to our day-to-day learning, which I'm a fan of project-based learning anyway. I think anytime you're trying to get a child to understand something, instead of getting them to memorize the definition, applying it to their day-to-day life or scenarios is going to be the best way for them to understand it. So I'm actually good with what's required in the state of California when it comes to unity. Moving on to the state of Texas. So in the state of Texas, we do have some things covered underneath the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. This is the health framework for grades K through 5, 115.2 through 115.6. There is sections that talk about handling disagreement and inclusion. Okay, so there is very loose wording around unity. Like if we had to get there, we could. It's just very loose. Now, in social studies, there are elements that include community roles, fairness, rules, and working together starting in kindergarten. So this is like, how do I get along with my friends? They don't have as much as California has in terms of a requirement for unity. It's more so discusses how to resolve conflict and conflict resolution, which is like on the other side of unity, because what we're getting at this week is how do we unify despite conflict, right? Like I don't want it to be enough to just be neutral. How do we truly work together even if we have differences? And Texas doesn't get into that as much. So while the language does vary, both states do state that they want children to be able to kind of connect with each other in one way or another, or at the very least be respectful of each other. Okay. Now, as always, y'all know what I'm going to say. Just because it's mandated curriculum doesn't actually mean that that classroom teacher is teaching that information. Whether or not your child understands the topic that's being taught depends on a variety of things, how the information is presented, if the information is presented. Like I said, just because it's mandated curriculum doesn't mean they're actually teaching the mandated curriculum. And then, of course, whether or not your child is able to receive and understand what's being taught. Okay, so there's a lot of factors that play on whether or not your child gets the information. So if unity is something that's important to you, if you want your child to be a villager, if you want them to be more involved in community, then of course you're going to have to take measures into your own hand and create spaces for them to be able to show up. All right, let's get into some resources that might help you to raise a child that is more community and unity based, okay? The first one is a resource called Teaching Tolerance. And I really love Teaching Tolerance as an online resource because they have so many different topics and just resources to be able to help you overall as a parent. But more specifically for this week's topic, there are lesson plans around anti-bias work, which is crucial when you talk about unity and connection, as well as how to create inclusive classroom settings. And so for the educators watching, definitely check out that resource to have your students be more unified. The next resource I'm going to bring up is called Peace First. And this is a global youth movement that really hones in on conflict resolution, which I do believe you have to solve conflict before you can unify if there is conflict. But it also teaches leadership skills through a variety of projects. Leadership is a super important part and making sure that you are unified. Like if you want to unite your neighborhood, your community, if you want to see change, there are some leadership qualities that will definitely help with all of that. So this website is also another resource that you should check out. And the last resource I will share for now, of course, if you want more, be sure to check out my newsletter in the link below. Sign on up. But for now, the last resource that I'll talk about is Character Strong, which has a K through 5 curriculum. Now, this is social emotional learning curriculum that is being adopted in many schools, but you can also utilize it at home. And it includes a lot of the things we've been discussing on the Teacher Lady Show. So empathy, teamwork, inclusion, community connection, and impact, all essential to making sure that you are raising a child that is interested in connecting with their society and unifying with those around them, okay? And of course, you can utilize this week's playlist as a resource. The two read alouds do a great job at holding conversations about what it means to be in community, what it means to unify and work together, and even some of the different ways in which we can unify and work together. Best practices at home. One of the best practices I would say is to get your child involved in things that require unity. Like, I am a strong believer that if you feel safe enough, they should go with you to that protest. If you're willing to, they should go with you to that beach cleanup day. Putting them in spaces to where unity and connection are requirements for success helps your child to understand these lessons early, okay? And unity is, sometimes our topics for that week are very much so like you need to sit down and have a conversation. Other times, our topics for the week are you got to get out there and get it done. And unity is one of those things. Teaching your child to be a villager and to work together with the people around them to see an issue and to gather requires actual work, getting out the house, getting involved in community, learning about what's going on in environment, so on and so forth. That is how you raise a child that is passionate around unifying with others for change. That's how you do it. You get out the house, all right? Unless you're bringing people in the house. And that works too. But overall, it's going to require a connection with those around you. Another best practice is to find out what your child is most passionate about, most interested in, and then get them around other people. So again, they're able to unify. So really just a repeat of what I just said, except for really honing in on what they see as important. When you're first trying to teach the principle of unity, making sure that whatever it is that you're involved in aligns with your child at that time, there's power in that. So if your child has no interest in environmental justice and you're trying to get them to be part of community, taking them to a cleanup day will be a bit counterproductive. However, if your child is interested in disability activism, or if your child loves Legos and they want to go to Lego Club, involving them in those communities and then understanding, well, we're going to do a Lego tournament together. So we all have to figure out what we're going to build, and just giving them opportunities to problem solve and connect will definitely get them there. And then another best practice is to consistently remind them that not everything is about them. So there is a balance, right? We want to decenter our children in certain spaces so that they understand that there are other people, right? We don't want to raise no overly entitled child that can't see that there is an entire world around them. But we also do want our children to feel special. So there is a real delicate balance there. But making sure that your child understands that the decisions that they make don't just impact them. When you take that candy bar wrapper and you toss it out that window, it's not over with. Your part might be done, and now you don't have the inconvenience that it's trash. But there are animals who could get hurt. It can fly in somebody's view that's driving and they can get into an accident. And the list continues of consequences of only thinking about yourself in that moment. So really get them to understand that you are part of society, whether you like it or not. And the decisions that you make have real consequences for people around you. That is a super important and valuable best practice when raising a child that is embedded, that you want embedded at least in their community, and that you want to unify for the greater good. When to seek help, that avoidance child. That child that is shutting down, they don't care about no problems. They don't want nothing to do with nobody else. They're just very kind of into self, and you can't pull them out and you can't kind of get them out of the slums. Y'all know what I'm going to say at this point. Go to a guidance counselor, go to your medical doctor if need be, get them some therapy and some help, okay? If you have a child that cannot understand why they would want to work with somebody, like maybe they have a partner and their partner looks different from them, or they sound strange, or they're differently abled and they have a very nasty attitude towards wanting to be around them. It's time to get some help. It's time to figure out how to get your child to be respectful of others, even if for whatever reason they claim to not like them, because you can't not like somebody you don't know, right? So these are all signs that it's time to go seek outside help. Overall, I would say understand that children by nature are their own priority, that they have a hard time considering or seeing the people around them. But as they get older, if they're not growing out of that, if they're not thinking about other people, if they are being extremely self-centered, there might be some personality differences at play, there might be some disabilities at play, there might be depression at play. We won't know until you go get additional help. All right? Some common places to get help: your medical professional, your school counselor if you have one. Y'all know I'm going to say it. Church, regardless of whether or not you love the Lord, and the library, regardless of whether or not you love books, because both places are nonprofits that are there to help you to get the resources you need to help your child, okay? Common questions. One of them is like, what if my child always thinks they're in charge? So they have a really hard time sacrificing, which makes it harder for them to join community and be unified. Yeah, that's going to take some humbling. That's going to take some self-correction, when everything is about them. We're going to remind them that it's not. And again, the goal is to not break self-esteem at all. You always want to empower your children, but the reminder that your actions have real consequences for everybody else is super important. And this is best done by day-to-day life, right? So you're in a situation to where you have to take them to a birthday party and then go to work, and you have taken so much time to get up and get ready for this birthday party that now I'm going to be late for work, so you can't go. And you can't go because we came up with a plan together, right? That you would get up and you would get ready and you would feed the dogs, and then you would meet me at this time at the door so that we can both do what we needed to do. But since you didn't, well, now it's impacted me. Situations like that, where real time in the moment they start to feel what it means to impact other people, are going to go a long way, because you keep trying to shelter your child from the consequences of their own decisions, and they will never understand what is wrong with their decisions. There is a balance there. We got to find it. All right. Another one when it comes to unity is that my child is always the one that's left out. They're left out of friend circles. They're left out of games. They're left out of whatever. And so it's hard for them to unify with anybody because nobody likes them and nobody wants them to be included. So the first thing that I will say is understanding your child and their needs is so important to this, because you might have that little quirky kid where it's harder to make friends. And if they had a great educator, the educator would find them a buddy and they would be able to kind of learn and get to know each other. But if that isn't your child's situation, now that school is over or it's summertime, what are they going to? What are they doing? Where are they connecting to other kids that are different or weird or quirky? Finding their group is going to be essential when it comes to self-esteem and when it comes to unifying. So if that's not at school, that's okay, but where else could it be? And that's how I would answer and kind of approach that situation. Wow. I know that was short, sweet, and to the point. I thank you so much for learning with me, for being committed to raising children who are unified and connected, for going through these different topics and figuring it out together. I truly believe in what we're creating, no matter how long it takes to reach all of the audiences. You're here and you listened, and that means the world to me. I really do hope that it helps you in your classroom or you at your home or whatever your situation may be. Be sure to reach out. If you didn't know, I am also an author and illustrator, and I started a program called the Pay It Forward Initiative, ran by the Empathy Library. It's very straightforward. You can go on the website and donate a book to a child in need. Until next time, okay? Until next time, you remember to enjoy the moment, or go be a joy in the moment. Bye.